So since we know how to work with the objects now, uh, let's create our first object, that is cloth, and put it a little bit in air, as it will have physics property to have a gravitational force that will make it fall to the ground. So let's create a cube. So when it instead of cube, let's say I'm creating a cone here. Okay. So this is our cone. So we need to apply physics properties to both. So let's start with cone. And there is this unique ability in a Blender that you can add different physics properties. You can give them additional properties like cutting or intersecting two objects to create a new object or union them by using special modifiers. Okay, so for that you need to select an object, go to the modifiers and add modifier, and then in physics I'm gonna say this object has physics property to collide with objects. Now, if I'm in the physics section, this circle icon here, that is like Earth, or let's say Sun and Earth is revolving around it, it's icon something like that. Now this one has collision property. It does not have gravity, but anything that uh, impacts with it will collide. So if I run this application right now, there is nothing happening because uh, we haven't set an animation here. So how animation works is simply just creates in motion for the gravity. So when you give it a gravity, it is automatically given an animation to fall towards the ground and it will fall it. By default, you have like 250 frames. So if video is recording at 30 frames per second, it will be something like 8 point something seconds of a video. Okay. That animation sequence we will do it later. Nothing to worry about that. But I just wanted you to know that we will play this animation sequence to see actually in cloth doing its bending and folding effect. Okay, so just click this, go to the modifier, add modifier, or just go to the physics directly and select the cloth. And there are so many complicated settings here which you can use, but I would always prefer for you to use stiffness and damping, and then go to the collision and self check the self collision check, which means is that if cloth is folding and if it is impacting with itself, it does not overlap. Okay, so in video games you have seen the glitch that cloth can overlap. Okay, so this is how cloth step will work. And if you want a special type of prefixes, like you want cotton cloth, denim cloth, there are some prefabs here, or you can say presets. I'm selecting cotton. So this will not work right now, but I'm going to show you that gravity will work here. You can see here there was little bit of bending when it impacted. So let me show you again. Let's say I'm putting initially 50 frames. Okay, you can see here it's little bit bending like rubber or jelly. That is because right now the cloth does not have any subdivision. Why do you need subdivision? Let me show you. Subdivide and put it on as much as possible number of cuts. By max I mean it can have 10 number of cuts. Okay, so if I put random seed, it is useless right now. So what happens is there, if one is impacting on this area or colliding on this area, so only this area will stop at its point, others will just fall down. So now if I did this and if I play this application, you can see here now it's folding. Okay, so the animation can be now detailed, and it did fold, but then there were some issues like self collision and problems. So nothing to worry about it. Of course, you gave it too many number of cuts. Now it's working just like a cloth, but the object that it's impacting on, it does not imply that it's impacting correctly. So let's say I unplay it, go to the prefab and select denim. Let's say I play. Now you can see here it's a little bit hard cloth than the cotton one. And if I select leather, it might give a very, oh my god. So leather is like a very animal skin. So I don't know if it's so hard or not. Or rubber, let's see how rubber works. Okay, it's like a rubber. It can stretch a little bit, not just work like a cloth. And if it's silk, silk is already folding in the air. So every object has its own property. So if I add a UV sphere here and give it a collision, make it smooth by, okay, so the smoothing thing is like selecting an object in object mode, just right click and smooth it. If I say shade flat or shade smooth and then press shade flat, it just go back to the smoothing area or non-smoothing area with cuts. And these cuts are actually the vertices. Create a circle basically in 3D world. Everything is a box. As soon as you give it too much bevel, it will convert eventually into a sphere. Shade smooth self collision is on. Let's check it now. So this is silk that needs a lot of, if I let's say give it a 0 of soft body and clothing, thickness of 1, or if I increase thickness to 1, now it's a little bit fine, but now it's like it sets too much of the area that is like margin property and does not actually impact directly. If I press friction, it is a lot of friction. So these are all these different, you can say, in easy words, let's say how everything impacts on it. Okay, so if I go to stiffness and increase the tension, let's see how it works now. Okay, if I put zero tension, it's folding even a bit lot. Okay, let's just give them a lot of value. Oh my god. So you can see here now this is extremely bending. So silk is extremely folding cloth. So beware what you are doing. So if you have done a lot of settings here, just I what I'm doing is going back to the cloth by removing and adding again and going to the cotton section and playing again. Okay. I'm not really good with English, but I think if I increase the bendiness and if I increase to 23, now it becomes like a rubber or leather that we did before. And if I press 0, it's bending a lot. So it should have some, okay, this looks better. Yes, okay. So the other thing we can do is, let's say there are some algorithms here. How do you want bending to work? So if it's angular, it will try to preserve its angular form and does not make it a very free. And if I press linear, it becomes extremely clothy. So this looks better than the angular in my opinion. So this is how cloth animation works. Just remember, give it a collision to the wall so that if it impacts with the cloth can have its shape. Otherwise it won't. If I remove this collision from here and press play sign, you can see here that, okay, this is a simple bug. That collision is, even after I removed it, the collision is working, but now it's not working because I did it again by adding and removing again. So you add, go to the physics, add collision, restart and play. Now it's working. Okay, and just give this cloth physics to the plane and select your prefab if you want to have a lot of extreme clothing effect. And Okay, now let's create a flag or a place where there is this cloth with certain shape. Okay, so let's say this is our shape, and I'm gonna go in Z direction and see if it's in the flag style. Yes, now flag is actually a wide screen area. So I think this was the default area, but okay, whatever suits the. And now let's say rotate. So instead of rotating it through mouse, I'm gonna go in this direction and press 90 degree for X. Okay, let's create a pole of cylinder shape. So if I resize it here, it becomes way too small. I need to zoom a lot. Let's see, the thickness is fine. And go to edit mode, press select face, and the face should be the top one, and press extrude. Okay, this is fine. And let's go to this and put it in the flex position. Okay, so remember one thing, if you are in edit mode and you add a new object, it will become the part of that. So let's say I'm in edit mode, I'm adding a cube. So when I'm outside, you can see here when I'm selecting the flag, it's also selecting the cube. So they both will move. Kindly be aware that always add a new object when you want to keep it separately, then do that in object mode. Okay? Don't do that in uh, again. I'm sorry, I forget myself, but do it in object mode, not in edit mode. So let's say I'm in edit mode, subdivide 10 cuts, okay, and shed smooth and select all the flag. And before do that, put it outside so you can see actually edit mode and select uh, the circle selection or just press W for that and select the initial vertices and let's group them. Why we want to group them? We want to say this is a cloth flag, but we don't want our initial jointed areas that will join with the flagpole to bend like the rest of the flag so that it is fixed at one position. So for that, first let's say I'm creating these vertices group. Why I'm creating this group? Because it will be easier and I will not have to do manually for each vertex to remain on single position. So I'm going to call this group flag joints and assign it. I leave and select. You can see here that the group is assigned and we did that in data object and go to the physics and then press A in the object mode. Add cloth. Cloth as in cotton. Give it a linear so it looks even cooler. We did that in the last video. And add self collision. So self collision is that if paper is folding, it does not overlap itself. Then go to the shape. So in shape, I'm just saying that leg joints are the areas that will not move and rest of the area will move. So if I play this, you can see here, now the flag is on the certain area, but it's not moving the vertices that we selected as a joint. So press G, X and put it here. This one here is by default uh, static area, so we don't need to necessarily put physics to it because it's already at its position until or unless you want to create an area that on blast the flag is also falling along with the pole, then you can do that. That's up to you. Okay, so this is how the flag will work. Okay, now there are some issues with it, like it's overlapping with this. So simply I'm gonna put something like this and something like this. By I mean that I just little bit moved it, but you can see here it's still colliding. So I'm gonna see if I can do something about the collision. let's say object collisions. It means that it can collide with other objects, and at friction distance is full 1 meter, let's say. Okay, it's better. It's not going inside the pole, but still it's not that good. So what I can do is go back to the default value and like give it a 0.05. Okay, now let's see. Okay, it's better but not perfect, but it's better. Okay, and then click this ball, and maybe now we might need it to add collision to it, and let's play. Now it's even perfect. Okay, but cloth's direction is changing a little bit here and there, so the fallen cloth does not look that cool. So what I'm going to do is add a new object called wind force. So we are going to use force field called wind, move it further towards the flag, then go to its transform property in object and rotate it in y direction minus 90, sorry 90. What am I doing? Then move it in x direction, and if I play it, the wind is applying to it, but wind has not too much strength. So what I'm going to do is select this wind, resize it a little bit, and go to its physics properties and just give it a strength of, let's say, 50. Okay, so it is telling you that now the flow of the air will have a strength of 50, and flow right now is, let's say, 100, and let's play. Okay, so flow should be 1. You can see here the flag is little bit at its position, and that means we need even more force. Now you can see here the force has increased. Press 200. Now it's even more flaggy and looks extremely cool. Okay, now this is how you make a flag.